what I want to say is that, you know, we talked about this a bit, especially last episode. It got a little heated. And I feel like I need to clarify for all of our listener that, like, indeed, actually, like, there is no...
For all of our listeners.
Hans and I are very good friends, and I feel as though I am not giving Hans the respect he deserves. I feel like, especially last episode, while discussing theories, I did not hear Hans out as much as I should have. Hans was literally my, like, officiant and best man at my wedding, like, a month and a half ago. Like, we are good friends. We love each other, and I feel like I'm coming across as too mean on the podcast. So, before we get started, I would just, you know what? I'd like to open it up to Hans. I'd like to hear what you have to say, and I will hear you out. I will give your thoughts and opinions on the movie the respect they deserve.
I didn't prompt this.
Go ahead. Share with the class.
Share with the class? You want me to just start at the top of my notes?
Yeah, just start, talking about thoughts that you have.
Okay, the very first thing that happens in this movie.
Golf, Hans! Okay, that was the joke. That was...
But you can't check your 6. It's kind of like, taking a screwdriver to a gunfight. What's happening? Just like old Tom.
I have a lot of notes for this one.
Yeah, this is my most notes so far.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
This is probably my second most notes.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. Coming to you live Saturday night. This is Steven See It All. Today we are discussing his sixth film on Deadly Ground, and the first and only feature film to be directed by Steven Seagal, as well as starring in.
With good reason.
So we have a true auteur on our hands here, people. He's, he acts, he writes, he sings. What can he do? So for this one, no one laughed at that. That was a really funny joke. No one laughed. I said, "What can he do?"
I was letting you do your intro and let it be clean.
No, we haven't had a clean one yet. Why would we focus on a clean one now?
I don't know. I feel like we should treat this one a little bit differently than the other movies.
Why should we treat this one?
Because we'll get into it, but because this is his first and only auteur film.
So we don't know why we're treating it differently, but we're treating it differently.
Okay. It's his first and only auteur film. This is pure Seagal.
Pure, uncut, straight Seagal, because we haven't had enough of that yet. All right. So I have the plot recap for this one.
Do it.
This one's pretty simple. You want to know the plot recap? If you know that clip at his SNL clip when he beats up stunt guys for like 6 minutes and then at the end says, "This is what happens when you pollute the environment." There you go.
That was practice.
It's that for an hour and 40 minutes. Well, it's that. Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead. It's that mixed with Dances with Wolves, essentially, if you need the entire plot. If you want the too short, didn't listen, the longer version, Steven Seagal in this one is a firefighter. They never actually, much like every other Steven Seagal character, it seems to be implied that he has experience with a 3-letter agency that makes him a specialist. In this one, a lot of characters like to speculate which one. I don't believe it is outright stated. But we see him put out a fire at an oil facility. We learn the reason for these fires are
oil facility.
What would you call it? Oil
it's
refinery.
A drill.
Oil
rig.
rig.
Drilling.
It's not a refinery.
A rig.
The refinery comes in later.
The company owns refineries and rigs. Okay, so this one, he puts out the fire at the rig. He learns, basically, jumping ahead, he learns this later, but we're going to do this non-linearly. This company has a contract. They need to build this facility. They need it up and running in order to make sure that they're able to keep the land from a deal they made with native tribes. So they're just rushing in faulty parts to make things work. There's, of course, corruption, all that fun stuff going on. One of the workers there is trying to expose this. He reaches out to the EPA. He tells Seagal, "Hey, make sure you're looking into that." I'm sorry, he doesn't tell Seagal. He tells Forrest Taft, firefighter and blowout specialist. He tells Forrest Taft about it, so Forrest Taft investigates this oil company with the CEO of Michael Jennings, played by Michael Caine, has his chief of security, Magruder, who is played by John C. McGinley.
This is a very star-studded cast. I was happy.
Although,
really
we'll get into it later. I think it is. He's had star-studded cast before, and he plays to their strengths, especially in Under Siege. In this one, I believe they're severely underutilized, and that is one of my many issues with this film. Mm-hmm. But Magruder and Jennings are trying to take him out. They kill his buddy. They try to kill him, but he survives thanks to the help of a local native Inuit tribe. The next 15 minutes are just very painful, and I did not have a good time. But through his spiritual journey, he is healed. And after having a spiritual journey which heals him and sets him on his path, he says, hey, this spiritual hocus pocus ain't gonna help us. Time to go do violence. And he does a lot of violence, and that saves the day.
And they just roll with it.
And they say that's cool. And we've complained before that sometimes you have a big climactic action scene and the movie just ends. I take back all those complaints. I no longer have those complaints because I've learned the alternative is that he can have the big long action scene and then just do like a 20-minute monologue at a supposed press conference, a like freshman high school level speech about polluting the environment. And I would rather we go back to Out for Justice levels of just ending the movie when the action's done. We don't need Seagal to just talk at the camera. For like 15 minutes at the end. It was kind of funny, but this is not a long movie. So far, Seagal has not had a movie that exceeds like, the 150 mark. This one's slightly longer. It's 140 versus some of the past ones that have been 130, but you know what? There's 10 minutes I could have gotten rid of right at the end of it just fine. There's actually about an hour 40 I could have gotten rid of and just been fine, but we're not going to talk about that. So I believe
we are going to talk about that. That's the whole point of this. That's the whole point of what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we're going to talk. Well, no one will listen about it, but
it is also the thesis of the film is like that last 10 minutes.
Yes, I understand. I'm not confused by that. I'm not saying,
I don't know how you could. I don't know
what the thesis is. Yeah. Steven Seagal.
Well, actually, the text of the film contradicts the theme of the film, but whatever.
If only that, if you know what, I'm sure this is the first time that's ever happened. I'm sure we've never talked about that before. But
so the very first thing that happens in this movie is that Hugh, the guy who's running the show at this drill site, they're trying to fight the fire or whatever that's going on. And Seagal rolls in on this helicopter and they do this close-up on this old man's face. And he goes, oh, thank God. And it just made me laugh because anybody thinking that Steven Seagal coming to save the day is like, oh, thank God we're saved. It's just the complete opposite of my thoughts. And then when Seagal steps off the chopper, he says, what's cooking?
So that becomes a recurring thing for me. I feel like all of these movies are guilty of a lot of tell with no show. I think this is the worst one so far. Like, half of the dialogue of this movie is people telling you how cool Seagal is.
And you can absolutely tell that he directed it. Like, this entire movie was an ego boost for him.
Well, okay, that's something I love about this movie, though. Like...
Really?
It's objectively not a good movie. I do want to say that. Like, it's just not good.
I'm glad. Hot take.
However, I do want to say, like, I had so many of my ideas about what Seagal thinks about himself and what he thinks is cool and what he thinks makes a good movie, like, clarified for me. This is like the lens through which you can look at all of his other movies, because
that's a fair point.
He had total control over this thing. And so,
it should be clarified. He doesn't technically have a story by or a writing credit on this.
Okay, that's true.
I feel like probably there were these how many? There were 2 writers. I feel like probably these 2 writers are in a room, and he's like leaning over their shoulder, like put that shit in there.
That's the feeling I get here, which is interesting because this movie is in some ways. I'm gonna explain in a minute what I mean by this. It is in some ways restrained.
Restrained?
in a couple ways. But we'll get to that in a minute.
What would those ways be?
Let's get into it right now. You're gonna have to explain.
Yeah.
Okay, so Seagal doesn't actually sleep with anyone in this movie.
Well,
there's no sex in this movie. He has like a kind of relationship with this woman.
There wasn't sex in the last one either, though.
But at the end, he like kisses Miss July, and it's implied that they have like this relationship.
Okay, so Miss July 89 he gets to first base with. Having a spirit vision where you see a woman naked, which base is that?
But the whole thing about that is that he turns away from her toward the old woman and completes his spirit journey.
Okay, but did you see the post-credit scene with him and the woman in the boat?
No.
Wait, there's a post-credit scene?
You didn't see the post-credit scene?
No.
There's a post-credit scene of him and his co-star, the woman, in a boat on somewhere in Alaska together. Now, they don't kiss or anything, but what you're talking about, that implied relationship after the events of the movie, is very much there in this one.
Well,
I didn't know they were doing post-credit scenes of these things. I didn't know
these were Marvel movies.
It's not, okay, to be fair, so it's like, you know how the credits roll, and it's like the top, it's like the A-listers credits, and then they like pause for the real credits. So it's in between those, but there's still a scene after the movie that has Seagal and is it Joan Chen?
Yes.
In a boat together, giving you that implied relationship after.
Okay. Hold on. Okay.
Well, there's still a scene where he chooses.
This just disproves everything you were about to say, Aaron.
Well, no, there's still that scene when he's on his spirit journey, where there's the gyrating naked woman and there's the old lady, and he walks away from the gyrations.
Yeah, and we're supposed to think, man, Steven Seagal is such a good guy. He chooses the old lady over the gyrating naked woman.
Although, what I will say, even, you mentioned this as being particularly restrained, even in that case, Seagal does have kind of an interesting... His misogyny is a bit more interesting than the average action hero's misogyny. Yeah. Because even in the last movie, Miss July comes out of the cake in a state of undress, and he, like, clearly he was cool with this in the movie, but it was important that his character acts like he's not, like, he's just, like, cover up. Like, he just, like, gives it, like, his characters, even when they do have sex, it is very important to him, at least as far as I can tell. I, don't want him to sign anything. Mm-hmm. From this work, I'm getting the interpretation that it is very important for him that he does not appear too into sex. Like, sex just kind of happens to him sometimes.
He's also clothed. Like, fully clothed.
Well, yes.
In the times that we've seen it. It's very weird.
But he's not, like, on the prowl. Ever.
No, you're right.
No.
You're right.
And even, like you said, even just what? At this point, even, I think it's just the first 2 movies are the most sexual. Like, since then, it really... He's, had these kind of love interests.
Now,
but, I mean...
I will say this movie doubles down on the explosions.
Yes.
That's not a terrible thing.
Significantly more explosions.
And that part is fine for the most part. There's some times I have an issue with it, but...
Yeah. But anyway, what I'm saying is one of the things that I'm going to say liked about this movie, not like the movie itself, but because of how I can use this film, is to, like... I understand Seagal better now. Like, I feel like I'm not calling... He's Steven now.
That's fair.
Like, I understand him more. Because I can see, like, looking back at the last 5 movies, what was Seagal and what was other people.
That's fair.
Because it felt like, especially in Under Siege, it felt like Seagal was, like, fighting the production.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say I gained insight into his character in this movie. I'm not going to say I liked that. I'm not going to say it's good because of that.
I'm not saying the movie's good because of it. I'm saying I liked it. Those are different things.
You liked that you got to see more of what makes Seagal Seagal.
That
might not be a good thing about Seagal. It's just interesting that you got to see it.
I'm just mad because I liked it. Like, that sentence, I liked it. I'm not saying it's good. That's a very Zach thing to say, and I don't like getting a taste of my own medicine. I like annoying my wife whenever I talk about movies in that way. When I say, like, oh, this is like, I like this 3-star movie better than this 5-star movie. Yeah. And I just like say stuff like that. That's a Zach move.
Sarah does hate that.
I don't like being on the other end of it.
We've talked about that before.
This is like a 1-star liked it on Letterboxd.
Ooh.
I have-
this doesn't need to go on the podcast, but I was just reading like Letterboxd themselves on like the Letterboxd blog. They had an article talking about the 1 star with a like movie. You should read that if you haven't yet.
I will. I definitely.
I would actually. I mean, I haven't done my Letterboxd review yet because I watched this movie. I finished it like an hour and a half ago. So, when I write my Letterboxd review, I think I'm gonna give it probably 2 stars. It's not trash. Like, it's not horrific as a movie. But I mean, it doesn't deserve more than 2 stars. I don't think.
No,
I think
so actually,
honestly, I think I would agree with you on that.
You're
I'd
saying
be at
2
the
stars?
same.
I would say 2 stars. Like, it is not good, but like it's not offensively bad. Like, the people who made this movie know how movies work, at least.
Maybe it's not offensively
like
bad,
Alfred
but
Justice.
it is badly offensive.
Yeah.
That's not grammatically correct, but you know what I mean.
I think I know what you mean.
I twisted that to make it work.
I had
So-
exactly one good point in all of my notes. I had one like upside to this movie, and that's that the music was pretty solid. The score pretty good.
Who did the score for this?
That was my
I was
only,
actually just reading
like,
that.
my only plus. Everything else is negative.
Music by Basil Polidorus. Oh, interesting. Oh, again, man, this guy just has the most talented people working on his piece of crap movies.
RoboCop, Hunt for Red October,
Yeah.
Blue Lagoon, Conan the
Conan
Barbarian.
the Barbarian, Free Willy, Les Mis, the 98 version. Yeah, no, this Starship Troopers. Oh, yeah, this guy's got some good music credits.
Yeah, goodness.
What was I say? So what I will tease is that I was also not decided on my star rating, but I think I need to discuss this some more to figure out. The problem is like if I just watch this movie out of context, like if I just watched it by itself, I might know the star rating, but I'm having a weirdly hard time contextualizing it into the whole Seagal verse. So at the end of this podcast, I will have my star rating, but I need to kind of hash it out internally a bit before I can decide.
Can I
and
ask
he was the
for-
uncredited conductor of the orchestra for the Twilight Zone.
What? That's crazy.
What are you going to ask, Hans?
Can I ask for your opinion on John C. McGinley's glasses?
I love them. Oh my god, that is one of my notes. They're
I took a
amazing.
great.
I took a screenshot of them because they are excellent.
No, where is it? It's like the 4th or 5th one that I have. Yeah, John C. McGinley is a style icon in this. Oh my god, I love
Absolutely.
the glass. Everything that man is slaying. He is styling. He is stunting.
This leads me to a question. Who is the antagonist in this film?
Okay. I
Not
see
the
where you're-
villain. The villain,
Yeah,
I think, is
yeah,
really
yeah.
clear. Because he's just kind of like a cartoonishly villain. And that's
He's
Michael
a captain.
Caine.
He's a
Michael
Captain
Jennings.
Planet. They have
I think
Michael Caine doing Captain Planet. villain.
Yeah.
I think
he's-
it's supposed to be John C. McGinley, but he does a really bad job at being the antagonist.
So that-
Well,
okay.
I shouldn't say that's not Michael C. McGinley's fault. That's the character does a bad job of being that
Well,
guy.
so he is like the antagonist until you get about 2/3 into the movie, and then R. Lee Ermey shows up
Yep.
and then becomes like the new antagonist,
Who also does an equally bad job.
who also
at
does a bad job. And I just want to say, R. Lee Ermey, may he rest in peace.
Yeah, sorry, that wasn't a dig at the actor. So
No,
I just had to
no,
get that in there.
It's
It's the character,
he
not
was
the
not
actor.
done. This is one thing that really made me mad about this movie. He goes out like a chump in this film,
Yep.
Mhm.
like an absolute chump. Actual Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant R. Lee Ermey goes out like a chump. He doesn't fire a single shot in this movie.
And even worse than that, you want to know what's even worse than that? This was like one of my main critiques. So like in Under Siege, we talked about this, that like they just surround this guy with an amazing cast. Like Tommy Lee Jones is used to his fullest. Gary Busey is used to his fullest. Like that this movie, I think maybe was trying to go for a similar thing. Like Michael Caine, I don't care what he's saying. He is just oozing charisma. Like,
And it seems sort of like, I mean, he kind of got to do something which I don't know Michael Caine for, this kind of character. Like
Yeah,
vulgar and angry.
Yeah.
And just kind of unhinged.
No, so they managed to orient Michael Caine in a direction that benefits him. I was so mad at this movie because they had R. Lee Ermey. They have like top 5 character actors of the 20th century. You put him in any movie, I don't care. You give him a script, you let him just make it up on the spot. I don't care. He's killing it nonstop. Amazing performance every time. And they waste this man, and I am so mad about it. They had just unlimited potential, and we get nothing because he doesn't just go like a chump. The only thing he does is he just talks about how cool Seagal is, and then goes out like a chump. He goes on like this 5-minute rant, like he's the guy that he'll drink gasoline just so he can piss on you and light you on fire, and just talks about how cool he is, and that's all we have R. Lee Ermey for. And R. Lee Ermey is a person who can be put into a Stanley Kubrick film and overshadow the rest of the movie. You have the greatest director of his time, but once R. Lee Ermey is involved, this is an R. Lee Ermey project. This is not a Stanley Kubrick movie.
Which is
funny.
remember,
people quote the R. Lee Ermey parts.
Because, like, Full Metal Jacket was his 4th film.
Right. But that, because he just, like, I'm going to give props, not for, he seems like actually not a great guy, but as a director, you, like, can't get better than Kubrick.
Mm-hmm.
And still, R. Lee Ermey can steal the show from him. That is how much you wasted him in the Seagal film.
Well,
that makes me legitimately mad.
Like, to be clear, his death, like, not only does the entire time, like you said, he just goes around talking about how great Seagal is and how they, have to dig up these ridiculously classified military records. But then he is the guy, he's the person to catch Seagal. He's the one to actually catch him off guard. The only one in any of these movies who manages to do so. And instead of just killing him, he has a shotgun. He just says, I've got you now. And then gives the shotgun to Seagal.
It makes me so mad. Yeah, exactly. He just stands there like this and lets Seagal lumber over and take the gun from him.
He literally gave orders not 3 minutes earlier to the rest of his men to shoot on sight. Yeah. Kill this guy. Snipe him. Get him out of here. And then he stands there like an idiot. And it's just the worst character choice. The worst writing. So awful.
Well, if it's any consolation, immediately after doing this movie, R. Lee Ermey... So this came out in 1994. In 1995, R. Lee Ermey did Seven and Toy Story.
Oh,
good.
Thank you.
He deserves so much better.
Arc. Oh my god, I'm so happy for him. Immediately after wrapping up this movie, how long he's making the movie. The second this movie closed, I feel like he's just as happy as one can be.
Yeah.
What's that picture of one of Tom Cruise's
Nicole
wives?
Kidman just walking out of the courtroom right after divorcing him? It's that. It's R. Lee Ermey walking off set like Nicole Kidman. Which is, probably the first time anybody's made that comparison.
Probably.
So, I mean, let's just go through. Let's talk about the actors and, the people in the movie. So, like I said, Michael Caine.
There's so much more to bring up. So many more notes.
Well, no. Well, we got the notes. Since we're talking about R. Lee Ermey, I just want to say.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
So,
I don't want to miss it. I have so many things to say about this.
Don't worry about it.
But John C. McGinley, I'm going to be honest, wide and varied role. Because the first thing I saw him in was Scrubs. It's very funny that, like, Dr. Cox from Scrubs is, like, this, henchman for, like, a villain. I thought that was very funny. But I feel like he's a style icon. He's great.
And he weirdly plays, like, the same guy.
Yeah. This is kind of just Dr. Cox on his, like, rogue. Like, he doesn't talk about this. This is what he did before the hospital.
Like, he has the same attitude, the same, like, frantic... I don't even know how to describe it. It's very good.
I could picture him, like, doing, like, his signature, like, whistle. Like, hey, Deborah, get over here. I need to rant at you for a second about how bad of a doctor you are. Like, I could just picture that in this movie. Although it is this, or it is one of the Bobs from Office Space. That's, in my head, that's where I go to.
What is it that you say you do around here? Because you didn't kill Seagal.
Oh, if we could get... This is so niche, nobody would care about this, but if we could have, like, Office Space character in this movie... If someone made, like, a YouTube edit of that, no one would care about this because no one cares about On Deadly Ground, but I love that. A very small bit part that I appreciated, the guy that starts the bar fight early on, the big dude that's just being, like, so aggressively obnoxious. And
Mike Starr?
Yeah. Okay, I was leading into that, Jesus.
You're saying, it's a bit part. That was, like, the whole start of the movie.
That's a bit part.
Well, okay, but, like, he's not even... he's in one scene. He's a guy that gets beaten up by Seagal in one scene.
Beaten up so badly that he has a moment of conversion and changes his whole life.
Yeah, okay, that was wild. Hold on, real quick.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm
sorry. So, if you don't know Mike Starr, I was going to say, what I really enjoyed is that I'm watching this and I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't like recognize him at first, and I'm just like, oh, he's the guy. He's from Dumb and Dumber. He's the he's the one surrounded by you want to hear the most annoying sound scene.
Oh yeah,
He's sitting in the car with them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was very fun for me. That scene is very weird because, again, we've talked about this before, where Seagal will just let you rob the store and kill the worker, and then be like, okay, let me step in and stop you. This is a similar one. Like, he beats up on this guy for like 20 minutes. He assaults the other patrons. He causes the whole scene, and then Seagal's like, okay, fine, I'll step in. And then this is the first time he decides to have a heart-to-heart with the guy he's having a bar fight with. That came out of nowhere, and it wasn't good. What does it take to change a man's heart?
Well, so at that point, and this is like one of the first things that happens in the movie. It kind of set the tone for me, where this is going to be a
stupid action.
This is an action movie which vacillates wildly between big dumb action and attempting to make like a spiritual message.
And it swings for the fences. It completely misses, but he still thinks he got a home run.
He's still rounding third on his way to home plate.
And they're like, dude, come! You weren't even come back.
And we will need to talk about like the climax of this movie, because it comes to a head at that point. I don't want to get there yet. There's a lot to talk about, and we need to talk about actors and stuff first.
Real quick, while we're still on Mike Starr, he has this heart-to-heart, and he says, like, what does it take to change a man? And Mike Starr says, like, he starts to cry, and he says, I just need time. And it's like he turns his whole life around. Were either of you expecting him to come back as, like, a random good guy to help Seagal out somewhere else in the movie, and then supremely irritated when he did not?
Honestly, no.
No?
So, because... Let me Seagal is not that good of a filmmaker. Like, it wasn't going to happen.
I was like, this is softballing it in there. This is such an easy setup to have an ally later on in the 100%. Movie, and then you just dropped it.
No, I'm right with Aaron. In another movie, that would be so obvious. I'd say, oh yeah, this guy comes back for the third act. But there was not for even a second that I thought he was coming. I just thought, okay, that's done. That character doesn't exist after the scene.
Yep. Ugh. He walks out the door, and everyone stops thinking about him. He will not come up again.
It's like a baby, like playing peekaboo. Like, he doesn't exist anymore once he's off screen.
Yeah, the script writing object permanence here is incredible.
Also, if we're talking about a severely underutilized character, Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob Thornton. When we get to the quotes, he has my favorite quote in this movie.
Okay.
I just think
he kind of oozes fun and charisma, and I got none of that from this movie. I just got the oozing, but none of
Where is he in this one? Because I saw him in the cast list, and then after I was done watching the movie, I was like, wait a minute.
He gets like these weird cutaways.
He's one of Arlie Ermey's henchmen.
Yeah. And he gets a couple weird cutaways where, like, there'll be the movie going on, and then just like, okay, we're going to get 2 minutes with Billy Bob Thornton, him just kind of like riffing. Okay, back to the movie.
Which should be fun. I should like that. Only Seagal can mess that up. I would love to just hear Billy Bob in any movie. I could watch in Citizen Kane, and Billy Bob Thornton just starts like rambling for 2 minutes. I'm like, all right, I'm having a good time.
This is a good time. Okay, back to the movie.
And it does nothing for me here. Oh, I'm so mad at this movie. It's just dropped a star rating. I think Sherry Chatook, she's as Lyle's his personal assistant. Yeah. She doesn't have like my favorite quote, but she has like a couple fun lines that I liked.
Well, and I think I liked her character actually.
She did a great job.
Yeah. No, she was pretty solid. Yeah,
and it's like I'm struggling to think of a woman in a Seagal film so far who is anything like her.
There aren't really a lot of like strong female lead.
She's a character.
Yeah.
I would say honestly, the closest that we've had is the Doctor from Marked for Death.
Yeah,
that's the closest. But she very much kind of fits her. She's in her own mold here. Whenever just like
you're right.
When Seagal starts messing around and she just goes, "He's back." I had fun with that. That got a laugh out of me.
Yeah, but she felt like the most. Like the fullest character of all the women that we've seen in these movies so far.
No, I would agree, and I enjoyed her.
You know what sucks? The entire movie, she was such a solid character because when she was on screen with Michael Caine, and the two of them together had that like incredible chemistry on screen that really worked. The one scene that she was in this movie alongside Seagal is her death scene, and it is the most pathetic.
I
death
hate
scene.
it.
Okay, yeah, no. So one thing I will
Yes.
say, I was like watching this movie and like, oh, this is a woman who's like an actual character. She has agency. She does things, and then at the end of the movie, she dies because women are bad at driving.
It's ridiculous.
She
and
does
that's the only
like,
scene she's on set with Seagal.
And the wildest thing is that they actually have the second best death in this movie immediately like juxtaposed right before hers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, so with John McGinley, he like, Seagal's got him and he's like, I have the stuff you need. And Seagal goes, you better have it in your pockets right now. And then like shoves his face into like the rotor of the helicopter. And going back to the glasses, you see like the blood splatter and then the glasses.
Oh, I love seeing the glasses hit the ground.
That was
Yes,
great.
I love
That was actually, that ruled.
perfect.
I'm not going to lie. That was perfect. And then she's driving away, crashes into something, has no injuries, but has fake blood clearly
all
just
over
like
her face.
on her
Covering,
face.
showers
Yeah.
of it on her face.
And it's laugh. I'm not even going to say I'm laughing, but I'm going to say it's laughable. Like that happened. I said,
Yeah, and then Seagal didn't even have anything to do with her death. The
Yeah.
fuel came out of the car and lit on fire. and then
Women be
exploded.
driving.
They
Yeah.
make eye
It's
contact,
just so ridiculous.
and they have never met before, never directly interacted.
Yep.
Like, and they make eye contact, and then she explodes.
Yep.
Awful.
It's so disappointing. Joan Chen.
Okay.
I'm gonna give her my personal pick for the trophy of the person who most deserved better in this movie. I'm giving it to her. Joan Chen is like my easy choice. Here she comes, Miss Deserve Better in the movie. She gets my award. I've been watching Twin Peaks lately, and exceptional, exquisite, like amazing in Twin Peaks, and just in this movie that she is his naked spirit journey vision.
Which
And then I'm sorry, Aaron, I know you have something to say, but that's all she does. She appears for that. And then she says like, hey, we kind of have a whole spiritual thing here. And he goes, that hocus pocus isn't going to help us. Like, so it is just, if you're familiar with like, the white savior trope, like mansplaining, like just take all of those and crank it past 11. This is something beyond mansplaining. This is Seagal explaining. Like, that whole rant he has to her when he's just like, your whole phooey that I just adopted, it's a bunch of junk. We need to go commit violence. And then she's just like his personal assistant, like carrying his duffel bag of guns.
And at the end,
she doesn't even do anything cool. She kind of just walks around with him the whole time.
And at the end, she like begs him to kill the villain.
Yep.
She wants more violence than he initially suggested.
And it's good that you bring that up, because she wants him to kill Michael Caine, and when Michael Caine finally dies, we don't actually see him die, but when he dies, she says, this is for my father. But it was John C. McGinley who shot her father.
Yes.
Like, there's no connection there.
No. Okay.
So I don't. Do you guys have a pick for most deserved better out of this movie?
Oh, it's her, because
she
spends the most screen time with Seagal, and therefore is brought down further than she should have been.
So if you haven't watched it yet, please watch. Everybody here, please watch Twin Peaks. Her character is amazing. She actually plays like a complex and like deeply flawed person, and it's great.
Well,
it's fantastic.
So speaking of her character and the pick of Joan Chen for that character.
Yeah.
So when the movie starts,
yes,
I was actually, let's talk about like a really thorny topic that I'm not qualified to talk about: representation in media.
Yeah.
And
let's
so
get into it.
When
it's bad here.
Well, and I was given false hope, because at the beginning of the movie, first thing you see is Seagal appropriating the local culture.
Okay, so real quick, that's literally like my first note I took.
Yeah.
Is that he appears and I just went, oh, come on!
Like he's just dressed up in some sort of American Indian garb.
This is
and then we
worse
find
than
out
like
that he's playing an American Indian.
So actually that's my question. Does he think he's Native American in this movie? There's one line that makes me think he does, but I wasn't certain of it.
I thought he was like of some indeterminate ethnic background. Like
I'm wondering if maybe I misunderstood then, because I have it written down in my notes that he's playing in Native American.
Okay,
and I was really confused how
this is kind of this is kind of similar to The Presence of Magic and Mark for Death, where I feel like the movie kind of wants it both ways. Like, Steven Seagal doesn't want to explicitly say that he's playing a Native American, but he's dressed like a Native American. He definitely seems more, like, tan. Like, I think he tried to give himself, like, I don't know if he just went in tan for a while.
And he
like,
did grow his ponytail back.
He grew the ponytail back, but also, there's one, while I'm watching, I'm like, is he just,
so
like...
greasy.
Is he just like a white guy just kind of appropriating culture, or does he think he's Native American in this movie? Although he has... The one line in particular that stuck out to me is at that bar fight scene where he beats up a bunch of the dudes, and then he says, "That's natives 8, oil workers 0.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm like, does he think he's Native American? Because he's not. Steven Seagal, you're not Native American.
Is he playing a Native American Indian, or is he not? I don't know.
Or is he...
Keep talking, I'm going to do some Googling.
Is he in real life appropriating Native American culture, or in real life and in the movie appropriating Native American culture is my question, I guess.
So then, that moment, bad.
Yeah.
When he
awful.
hops off the helicopter,
Truly,
awful. No, this is
probably the worst
direction.
part of the movie, and it's literally like the first 5 seconds.
And I thought, this is how this is going. But then you get to the bar fight scene, and I'm like looking up. I have IMDb open. I'm looking up who all these characters are and who's playing them and stuff. And I'm discovering that a lot of the Inuit and American Indian characters in the film are played by actual Native American Indians.
Yes.
Like,
and
I was at first given false hope, and I thought, oh, okay,
how foolish of you.
He actually cares, at least in the casting, he cares about
this. You dumb idiot!
I was a dumb idiot.
Cared. That's your first mistake.
Because I thought, oh, well, if this is going to be about spirituality and environmentalism and all these good causes, then maybe he's going to care about that. And like even the behind the scenes stuff, maybe he's like a genuine environmentalist and cares about representation and stuff. Well, and then you get to like the actual Inuit character with whom we spend the most time, and it's Joan Chen, who, nothing against her, is not Inuit. She's Chinese.
And not like, and I feel like they kind of address that, because at one point she literally says like, I forget, she just straight up says to her character, just like, I'm Native American, like I'm Inuit or something. Like,
no, yeah, because he asked her if she knows how to ride a horse, and she says, "Of course I do. I'm a Native American." Yes,
that line too. That one's.
I'm like, Joan Chen, no, you're not.
I'm like,
and it's very obvious that you're not. You don't look like anyone else in your village.
Well, they even and this is another problem, like it's a serious problem, obviously, but in the whatever. I don't remember where it was. I have it in my notes somewhere. Hang on, let me find it.
Real quick, while he's looking, just something I wanted to point out. That guy at the beginning, so the jerks, the oil workers are starting the fight. They keep picking on this one person who appears to be an alcoholic character.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just bullying him. They're like, hey, we'll give you a beer. Never mind. We mess with you. In the credits, he's just listed as Drunken Eskimo.
Oh.
And I'm like, I get that. I'm like, you could have given my guy a name. It didn't even have to be a good name. Like, I'm like, really?
He calls him by something.
He said, he's like, let me give you a ride home. I don't remember what he calls him, if he calls him a name.
He says
but I'm like,
brother.
You could have. Oh, okay. I'm like, you could have made up a name. Drunken Eskimo. That's.
Okay, so I found it in my notes, and I didn't write down who said it. I just wrote, oh god, this, no. So at some point, I think it was Michael Caine. I don't remember exactly who it was, but somebody says that Steven Seagal was palling around with a slope, which I'm pretty sure is a really terrible term for an
I completely
Asian
missed that.
person,
I
right?
did not hear that. They very likely said that. I don't remember that movie.
Well, no, that's what that is, right? That's
a
terrible term for an Asian person. I think that's what that means. A derogatory term used for the purposes of describing a Vietnamese/Asian person. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So.
That's
like
so
someone said that in regards to Joan Chen's character, but she's supposed to be an Inuit person.
I just need to point out. I searched for this, and like Wikipedia, very helpfully, one of the first results is just list of ethnic slurs from Wikipedia, and. We're gonna keep that link blue.
But yeah, no, I wrote that down because I was like, oh god, that's cool. That's
yeah,
rough.
I
Yeah,
completely missed that one.
Yeah.
But again,
Okay,
that's
it
they
just
said
drops
that,
another
and
star.
I'm mistaken, but I'm fairly certain that was in regard to Joan Chen's character, who was not supposed to be.
I mean, this
Asian
goes back
in
to a
this
common
movie.
thing. The Seagal movie wants to eat its cake and have it too. Like it wants to have a theme and then completely contradict that theme and have another theme. Like this is
it's
very
just ridiculous.
indecisive.
I'm not finding anything on Steven Seagal's character's nationality on the internet.
I think they're intentionally vague with it because they kind of want to like not say he's Native American, but if you are led to that conclusion, if you assume that the movie's fine with it,
Yeah.
Well,
and
I think the reason I get to that point is because I know that in his later films he also plays other nationalities that he's very much not.
Yeah. Where he doesn't explicitly state it, but he's like, I'm just gonna speak with like an Uncle Tom amount of like, a Tropic Thunder amount of racial sensitivity and just go with that.
Well, and for Joan Chen, she, after this movie, and really before this movie, she had been acting since the late 70s.
Yeah. Okay, wait, did you see how she heard like Discovery Story, how she got picked up? It's amazing.
No.
So Joan Chen, this is I'm just full credit. This is just from Wikipedia. I just happened to see this when I looked her up. They were raised during the Cultural Revolution. At the age of 14, Mao Zedong's wife saw her they had a school rifle range.
Yeah.
Like saw her just like shooting a rifle and then like put her into this actor's training program. Like literally the wife of Mao Zedong like put her into acting.
What?
Like every other person's like Hollywood, oh, I was a waiter and like this guy said I did a funny voice. Like everyone, you suck. I don't care. I don't care how you got discovered. Even the very funny story of I faked an Aikido demonstration and like a Warner Brothers executive on a bet made me a star pales in comparison to how Joan Chen got discovered. Like you cannot have a more wild actor discovery story than that.
Well, she, before this movie and after, had a very successful career. Not only in Hollywood, but also in Chinese cinema. She seems to be doing very well for herself. So,
yeah,
good for you, Joan.
Yeah. Well, I need to. She's got some pretty recent movies. I need to look up some of these. I mostly, Joan, I'm sure you're listening. I mostly know you for Twin Peaks. I will give some of your other movies a watch.
I mean, Chinese cinema is a big blind spot for me. So.
Oh my god! But there's so much that's so good. We could have a Chinese cinema podcast. Are there any other important characters?
Well,
that
so
we should
Hugh,
discuss?
the old guy.
Yes. He kind of helps encourage Seagal to go on this, like figure out is that what you're talking about?
Well,
he's the one that's also kind of uncover corruption.
Yeah. So in his finally,
I forgot his character's name. I'm sorry.
His character's name is Hugh, played by Richard Hamilton, he's killed by Magruder, John C. McGinley's character, in like a very obvious way that any detective would figure out immediately what happened. But anyway,
it's like the explosion choked him out and punched him in the head like 30 times.
Okay,
we have to talk more about it.
I will say the first thing I'm going to say about his character is that he looked really familiar to me, and I couldn't figure it out until I looked it up later. And it's because he's from the opening scene of Men in Black. He's the old agent who gets retired at the opening of Men in Black.
I wasn't sure if it was going to be Men in Black or if it was going to be Frasier. I know you're a Frasier fan.
I do
so
like
I wasn't
Frasier,
sure
but I recognized him from Men in Black. That's where it like stuck in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't recognize him, but I just googled it, and you're right. I immediately saw like I see the connection now.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that. That's awesome.
But anyway, so I have a similar issue here as I did with Under Siege, where there's like a better movie here yearning to break free. And now the difference is with Under Siege, I have like a conspiracy theory that they actually shot the better movie but couldn't get it to work, and so they edited it into what we finally got here.
And you're saying the Hugh Palmer story just should have been better but was never set up to actually be
better? Like so like when John C. McGinley goes to kill Hugh, he has one of his goons just like rifling through Hugh's gun cabinet, and I thought, oh, they're gonna like stage a suicide. like you're going to use one of his guns to kill him because, you know, 3 of Hugh's men died on this oil rig and he was held responsible, so he feels bad. And it would just like make sense to cover up, you know, what he's been discovered. No, they just wreck his home and strangle him.
Smash all his fingers.
Smash all of his fingers and use a pipe cutter to like cut off parts of his body and then strangle him to death.
Now,
it sounds like the way, like, whenever you start getting into, getting, like, really into people who have conspiracy theories about Jeffrey Epstein, and it's like, oh, yeah, he must have just, like, drove his car 40 miles into a lake, got into the backseat of his car, stabbed himself 37 times, and, like, punched himself in the face, and that's how he killed himself.
Yeah. Like, there was a perfect setup. There was, like, a character in the background, unnamed, just, like, doing stuff in the background that looked like he was setting it up. And it was very intimidating. And then they just decide no and do something completely different, which makes way less sense. Also, my first note on here, on my like notes, is that apparently Hugh keeps his DVD collection in his gun cabinet.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, there's just like a pile of DVDs in there.
I don't know if you picked... I liked you said they were rifling through his gun cabinet. I thought that was...
I think my favorite part about all of that is that they either smash his fingers or cut his fingers off. I didn't quite catch that. But then they smash him. I assumed legs because they showed his arms still like attached to the chair, but they used that pipe cutter to like cut something off of him, and it looked
that's right,
horribly painful, and there was like a lot of blood shown in that scene. Yep. And then when Seagal and Joan Chen come to his house later, there's no blood, absolutely none.
Well, they cleaned it up. Don't want to leave evidence.
Well,
yeah, but the rest of the house is still completely destroyed.
So actually, funnily enough, I don't know what this is. If just, you know, spilling blood leads to, like, you know, cleanup if you need to do a redo in the scene, I'm not sure. Because I noticed something similar in that bar, going back to the bar fight scene real quick. When he, like, hits the guy in the stomach, the guy falls on the ground. They very obviously, like, while he's looking away from the camera, play a vomit sound effect, and there's just no.
And Seagal even like mentions it. Oh, that's.
Oh yeah, he says, "Oh, you're gonna clean that up," or yeah.
And there's no.
But there's very clearly none. There's none on his face, none on the floor, like
none.
Yeah, that's it.
Clean.
So that happens a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They also during that fight. During that fight, one of the guys comes up to Seagal and he like grabs him and punches him in the nuts, and the guy screams out, "My nuts!"
Actually, that happens twice.
Twice? Oh,
yes.
I must have been laughing during the second time because
he goes for a lot of nut hits in this movie.
Like almost everyone he fights at some point gets kicked in the nards. Like it's
or even worse. So one, real quick, that fight scene there, I liked the quote that I liked is whenever he starts first approaching the guy, and some background character literally says, "Oh shit, holy come up first." If we're talking about tell don't show. And then also one part that I really liked, not even like because it's necessarily funny, but like, you know, I kind of made a little joke to myself, is when he says, "You were wrong when you thought I was a good man once." And I said, no, you're not a good man until 2014 Steven Seagal film, A Good Man. But can we, actually, this is a little bit of a pivot, but talking about the nut hits.
Yeah, let's talk about this motif.
So, at the end of the movie, like I said, we have like the second best death scene immediately followed by like the worst. Similarly, earlier on when they're in his house is being invaded by some goons and he has to like, you know, fight them off, and Joan Chen is in the bathroom with like the disc with the compromising information. Maybe my favorite Seagal moment so far. He has a handgun, a pistol in one hand, a shotgun just in the other. And so they kind of show him, like, I guess they're implying that he can just hear exactly where people are just by like footsteps. So he's on the first floor and he just one hand points a shotgun up and shoots a guy in the nuts who's on like the second story. Like, through the floor, through his, like, you know, the ceiling above him. He one-hand shotgun blasts the dude in the nuts above him, and then just shoots a guy with, like, and, like, after that, everything else downhill. Like, I thought I was gonna like the scene. This goes back to my theory. If he was just, like, the ultra-violent, the amoral, like, RoboCop meets John Wick, there could actually be an appeal here. He does that for 1 second, and then the rest of that scene is trash.
Well, I have in my notes about this scene, Once again, Steven Seagal figures out how to turn a gunfight into a fist fight.
Always.
But in the
Like, it could have been
the one that got
like the setting of it, where everybody is in the house. I'm like, oh, they're like setting up this kind of cool gunfight, and for about 30 seconds, it's a cool gunfight. I keep getting tricked watching this movie. Like, they set something up, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a good. Nope, it's not. And they set up a good gunfight, and then everyone, their guns run out of ammo. Several guns jam, and they just throw them on the floor.
Steven Seagal's gun jams. They have like a whole solid 5 seconds of just shooting like his hands, and this it looks like an I wouldn't know what gun it is. I'm not good at guns, but something like that, some machine gun, and he's just like pushing it back and forth, trying to get it, I guess, unjammed. It's just such an extended scene of that happening. It's so strange.
And the worst part of that fight is immediately after that, because he puts the gun down, and then there's two fellas. One of them like approaches like the same counter Seagal's hiding behind and ducks down and hides like just on the other side of this like bar. This
he still
counter
has a gun.
Seagal slowly walks over to the guy's friend, hits him, and then after that happens, the guy crouching behind the bar stands up, slowly lumbers over to, like, nobody's in a rush here, and like tries to hit, like, pistol whip him. And I'm just like, we had a kind of cool gun scene. Do you remember how happy I was when he shot the guy in the nuts on the second floor? This is the opposite of that. Like, he has one good moment and then it's immediately undercut, just like Johnson McGinley at the end of them. Like,
I'm detecting a motif here. There's a rhythm to this movie where I think the first third, so like if you divide, let's talk about 3-act structure. You have the 3-act structure. You can also divide every scene in a movie into its own 3-act structure. I think the first act of almost every scene is really good.
It's pretty strong. And then he gets tired. And then he hit the catering table too hard, and now he has to lumber over and kind of. They
don't know what to do with.
That's probably
the
because
other two
Seagal
acts.
Was directing.
Like
they all got irritated with him.
Let's go back to.
They're like, "Do you want to try that one again?" And he's like, "No."
Well, I want to go back to like what I was saying about Above the Law, all the way back to the beginning. It's a 17-year-old in the 1980s, his idea of a cool action movie. Like, a 17-year-old who loves action movies, like 17-year-old boy who loves action movies, would come up with like a cool premise for an action movie or an action sequence or something. But you ask him to like actually sit down and tell you how the story works, he can't do it. And so Seagal has like a cool idea for a bunch of scenes in an action movie, and then attempts to like string them together. And he has like this personal pet philosophy that he, tries to explain at the end. Like, it's just tacked on to the end of the movie.
I mean, I can picture that they're sitting there and he's like, oh, and then I'm going to like blast the dude, beneath, and then like, shoot his friend and then get behind the bar with him. And they're like, what happens after that? And he goes, I punch him. And we do a fight. There's no choreographing a fight scene. He just says, we do a fight scene. Like, we do a keto, and that's... That would actually
I think that would also explain why all of these movies are just packed to the gills with stunt performers being asked to be actors.
Yeah.
Because you need to be able to just, like, do stuff.
Okay, now I'm going to flip you. And they're like, sure.
But I think, in my estimation, like, most of this movie is, like, the setup of a scene is cool, but then it doesn't know what to do. And so he just, like, fumbles through the scene,
well, the
and then
setup,
they start the next setup.
I will I'm going to take what you said. I'm going to pick a little bit. I think every scene wants to be cool. And then fumbles it. I'm not going to say every scene is cool and then fumbles it. I'm going to say every scene really tries
No, that's
to
what
be
I'm
cool
saying. I think,
like
okay.
I was just I'm adding the try. It's
just
a very active
like the
try.
gunfight in Hugh's cabin. It's maybe like 5 minutes. The first minute and a half, I really liked of that whole fight.
But I think even, out of 10 scenes, like 3 of them are like at the beginning, and then they get weak, and 7 of them are just weak throughout.
But it's the same.
Fair. So that's why I'm emphasizing.
I mean, that was the same with Out for Justice. The very beginning of the final fight scene where he blows a dude's leg clean off with a shotgun.
Yeah,
like
and then he kicks the dude so hard he dies.
That's very, very cool. But then it's all downhill from there.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, and then Seagal goes on tired.
Although actually, the ending of that one, where I think I said that when we did that video or we did that recording, the ending of that one was very cool because what's the guy, the big bad guy? What was his name?
Oh,
Ricky or
Ricky.
Eddie
It was Ricky. It was Ricky.
Was
I'm
it
looking
Ricky?
for Ricky.
Because like the whole all of these movies, the ultimate bad guy is like the best fighter, so they save that fight for last. And in that one, he didn't know how to fight at all, so he just got his ass handed to him, and he was expecting it. Like that's what he wanted. That's how he wanted to go out, and I actually appreciated that.
Yeah.
Yep,
can I pivot us just a little bit?
Sure.
Absolutely.
The scene.
Actually, no. Yeah.
The scene where Michael Caine
nice
gets
act,
done
nice
with
act.
like the press conference and goes back to his office and has an assistant like putting lotion on his face for him with a little sponge. And then he yells at her to get out of his office. She tells him, "You look 10 years younger." He yells at her again, and then the rest of the scene he just has little like globs of lotion all over his face as he's delivering this like
and Michael Caine kills it. He's so good at that. It's so bad, but he does such a good job with what he's given.
It was so perfect. It's just like...
No, I love especially that. Like, it's the way she's like running out the room, and she's like, "Oh, it takes 10 years off." Like, it's great.
Well, so I'm trying to solve a mystery here. How is it that for 6 movies, Steven Seagal managed to pull in like really good and famous actors?
I mean, I do think the one thing that does help is for a good amount of these actors, like they definitely had like some good roles before these movies, but I think even a lot of these, it's like very retroactive.
Yeah.
Like Michael Caine was a great actor at that point, but he's like a legend now.
Yeah.
So we're watching it within our minds, legend Michael Caine. And at the time, he was probably like pretty solid like all of these actors, they might have had really good things before this movie, but they all had great things after this movie.
Yeah.
So they all built star power after these movies is the only way it makes sense.
I guess that's...
Is that he can get some pretty solid actors, but it's before they were like industry icons. Like we did not yet hear Michael Caine talk about like finding a ruby the size of a tangerine like when this movie happened.
Man, we should watch every Batman movie. There are way more.
Oh my god! Oh, I would so much rather be doing that right now. Oh,
just to watch Batman 1989 again and just gush over it for a little bit.
That movie rules. I would have a great time.
I wore that VHS tape out. Anyway,
did either of you catch when after the tribe finds Seagal after the explosion, they bring him back and they like do their work to heal him, whatever, and the chief comes in and starts digging his knife around in his back, and Seagal doesn't yell out in pain, he just screams "ee." like E. That's like I can't even like mimic the way he does it, but it's not like a normal like yell in pain like "oh my god that hurts." It's just E.
No, that part like, again. They're like, "Can we do another one on that?" And he's like, "No, I'm the director." Like, I would not be surprised if like half of the like shots in this movie were first takes.
Yeah, probably.
He's like the anti-Kubrick.
Yeah.
Kubrick was famous for doing like 1,000 takes of every scene.
I was going to say... So I was going to think of the opposite. I was going to think of a director who's infamous for like just, being efficient. Like, cool, one take, we're done, we're moving on. So I was going to say he's like the Clint Eastwood. But like, he's the... What's the movie? The 13, 12, 13... What's the... Hold on. So okay, we're gonna do another line right at this. We're gonna pretend that I knew this. So I was trying to think of the opposite. I was trying to think of the opposite of like the Kubrick, like the director that's just super efficient, like just one shot moving on, which would make him like the Clint Eastwood of directing. But I think Seagal is like the 15-17 to pair as Clint Eastwood of directing. He's not like knocking it out of the park. Like Clint Eastwood has directed some good movies. Hey all, welcome to the Clint Eastwood podcast.
Gosh.
But Seagal is like the 15-17 to Paris version of that as a director. He's not making, what else? He's not making Bridges of Madison County. He's not making Cry Macho. He's not making Gran Torino.
Oh, Gran Torino.
He's like Sub-American Sniper.
Oh, speaking of
don't say, do you feel bad for Seagal now?
Well, no, I feel bad.
Or are you owing at America at the existence of American Sniper?
I feel bad because I went and saw American Sniper, and like, I don't want to talk about American Sniper, but what I do want to.
Okay, but real quick, but like the fake baby,
the fake baby was
scene
very
famous.
fake.
Even if you haven't seen the movie, you know the fake baby scene. Steven Seagal would let the fake baby make it into the movie too. That's what I'm saying.
So you mentioned American Sniper, and that reminded me of something that I want to talk about this movie. The editing in this film. Let's talk about film craft, because we're talking about directing and things like that. Let's talk about film craft.
Well, I have some stuff for this.
Warcraft.
The editing in this movie is absolutely wild. Like,
it's not the worst that we've seen in Seagal.
Well,
no, but it's also not the.
It does some.
It's not the best.
It does some interestingly bad things. Like, bad in really interesting ways. 100%. Like, how did this happen? Like, there are no establishing shots of, like, anything.
Nope.
I don't know the geography 100%. Of anything. Like, there's this whole horse race chase scene through the woods. I have no idea how close anyone is completely, to anybody.
And I feel like you can tell they were just on completely, like... And in a lot of movies, like, you know, it's not uncommon practice that, like, you have literally one shot is here and then one shot here is, like, 50 miles away. This movie, it's just a bit more obvious.
Yeah, there's like a matte painting thrown in there at one point.
Except actually, I'm not gonna lie, that might be like my favorite part of the horse chase. This like very obvious like matte painting shot that they like keep cutting back to.
There were a couple
matte
matte paintings like 3 or 4 in this movie, and I kind of liked some of them. Like the matte.
No, honestly, I thought that was.
It felt like a classic Western for a second. It was kind of fun. It felt like Woody's Roundup, jumping over the gorge. To get away from the people chasing.
No, that's a good way to put it.
That was one of my favorite parts, where they jump over the gorge. He sets off a little bomb, and you expect that it's gonna like collapse the whole other side.
Or do something, and or do anything. I expect it to do something.
All it does is like chip off the tiniest little piece on screen, at least, and the guys roll up, and they can't make that jump, and they all sit there and they all say out loud, "Man, this guy's good." Like, well, what?
And furthermore, I'm going to get back to the editing in a second, but because you brought up the scene, like, they also say, well, at least now we know where he's going. You knew where he was going.
But you don't.
An hour ago.
It's no different.
Where else is he going to go?
There's only one place that anyone has ever talked about in this movie.
Speaking of that place, I'm going to send you a picture here real quick. I know that doesn't really do justice to the podcast, but I need you to look at this picture and zoom in on it, because
I loved this. This was one of my favorite shots in the whole movie.
This is a picture of Aegis 1. Explain. Yeah, this is a picture of Aegis 1. This is the oil rig that's like just offshore from the oil refinery in the background. Yeah. And this is it's such a poor like Photoshop quality thing that they stuck into a movie. This is like a freshman year in high school Photoshop project.
I loved it.
It honestly,
none of it works.
You know what it reminds me of?
It's different colors. Honestly, it's different like aspect ratios. It's different
like 3
angles. Yeah, none of the shadows match up. But then the best part of it all is that they just like pasted the whole rig and rocks and stuff on top of water, so none of the water like flows. It's better when you're watching it in the movie because none of the water flows around these rocks. It's just like flat.
Yeah.
And honestly, the top part of it, the like mechanical like rig part of it, it reminds me of when you're watching like an old Scooby-Doo, like the original run of Scooby-Doo, and you can see the animation cell, like there's like background details, and then like one drawer or like one book,
and you can tell
is
which
a completely different color, completely like detailed, like sticks out so much. It just looks like they're supposed to walk over and pull on this oil rig, and that opens a secret.
Yep.
Like
for anybody who's interested, this is at 22 minutes and 7 seconds in. You see this scene, so you don't have to watch the whole movie. But if you just go to that part and look at what we're talking about, it's so bad.
So Steven Seagal, while making this movie,
feature film. This went to theaters.
So while making this movie, Steven Seagal was clearly in a freshman year like graphics, graphic design class, in addition to being in his freshman year like persuasive writing speech class.
I do want to say about
back
this shot, though.
I'm sorry.
I really liked this shot. To be contrarian, I liked it because it's obviously the composition.
I just need you. I'm doing your face. I'm like The Office. Like
the composition is amateur. You're absolutely right about the light sources, and it does look like it's very obviously photoshopped here. I mean, some of the 1994 version of whatever that is. But I think like the individual elements are pretty good. Like I don't know who the artist was. Like they're fine.
They're fine because they're just pictures of something set like real out there in the world, but they're all pasted together poorly.
Oh, it's composited.
If this was concept art for the movie, I'd say, okay, cool. Now I'm interested in the final result.
But it made it to the theaters. That's why it's so bad. A problem.
And they said, we're going to get like the final art pass on that. And they said, yeah. And then just...
Well, I don't know what post-production was like on this movie because I would love to see like a little 15-minute max mini documentary about post-production on this movie. Because like back to the editing things, like there are a couple moments where there's slow motion, but it's obviously just like the 24 frames a second that they recorded at slowed down to like 12 frames a second.
I have like three different notes here about this. I have like three different notes about the slow motion in the scene. I did at one point, Hans will appreciate this one. I said I love all the slow motion in the beginning. It was like the first time they started doing it in the bar fight. I said I felt like I was watching Avatar: The Way of Water in Dolby Cinema with like the change in frame rates. Because like you said, they did not... If you need to do slow motion in a film, you need to like shoot at a higher frame rate. You need to shoot like 40 frames a second. So if you slow it down halfway, it's at the same frame rate as the rest of the movie. Like very clearly
not do that.
Like it's just missing half the frames. So yeah, like I said, there's like 3 or 4 times where I made a note of it.
What made me even more frustrated about that is that at near the end of the movie, there's a slow-mo scene which was very obviously recorded at a higher frame rate because when it's slowed down, it's not choppy like the earlier slow-mo scenes.
So it's planned slow-mo versus like editing.
There was like throw one that in shot there. That was planned slow-mo, and then everything, all the slow-mo before that was like in post.
Like something I wouldn't be surprised is if he knew that he wanted slow-mo and then just severely underestimated the amount of slow motion that he wanted. Like they planned for it in 1 or 2 shots, and then he's just like throughout the rest of the movie, they're like, he doesn't actually look that good in motion, and they're like, just do it slow motion. Slow motion it. Like some of those just feel like the fight scene just wasn't good. So they're like, just choose some random shots to make slow motion so it like feels, dynamic or something.
I actually had a moment, a couple moments where there's like something going on in the scene, as scenes do. But
you know how movies work. Things happen on screen, right? We've all seen a movie.
Like unless you're talking about Out for Justice, where nothing happens the whole time.
Except, like, things are happening on screen, but we're so quickly jumping from thing to thing that it feels like the characters are, like, teleporting around the scene. And I was actually, like, jumping in my seat, trying to figure out, like, every time it would cut to...
Damn, put that on the DVD cover. I was jumping in my seat.
Technically true.
Captivated.
But I was
captivated by the bad editing.
Well, I was like shocked every time it would cut, because like the previous shot wasn't done yet, and then the next shot felt like we started late. Like the action had already begun, and we're like every frame is in media res somehow. It was very strange. So it felt like I don't know how any of these scenes are like laid out. Like, what was the blocking? Where is everyone in relation to everyone else?
Ha 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 ha! You assume.
Like, I can't. I could never figure out where everyone was in space or time.
I think you could put out $1 million bounty for the storyboard for this movie, and nobody could do it. I don't think it exists.
No, you're probably right on that one. Okay. No, I'm going to send you a picture again. I know this doesn't really help. This is during the bar fight scene when the fight actually like finally happens, and all of
damn Hans, you're a shoo-in for that NPR internship. You really
I know. This is really ineffective to our 2 listeners.
Oh, we got a second? Hey!
Well, one of them is probably one of us. During that bar fight scene, when like the guy, what's his name? Big Mike? Yeah, Big Mike's cronies all get up from the table, and they show a shot of one of Big Mike's cronies, and they show the back of his head, and just like, tell me what this is, because it looks like hair just on the back of his head.
I was wondering about this.
I had to go back and rewatch it twice because I was so captivated by this man's hair. It doesn't make any sense. Like, he is completely shaved everywhere except this little patch, like, just on his neck.
You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say it's the minimalist mullet.
Well, it's like
That's a terrible thing to say.
It's almost like...
It is a deconstructed mullet.
It's almost like a Manchu ponytail thing.
But only that.
But it's not actually like a ponytail. It's just like a patch of hair.
Okay, you know what? Okay, conspiracy theory. This is what I think happened. He showed up on set with that ponytail, and Seagal said, "I'm going to wear the ponytail," and they just made him cut it off, but didn't shave the rest of it. That's my theory. That's what I think happened. Hans, don't fight me.
I won't. I like that.
He just forced someone from hair and makeup to walk over with a pair of scissors and cut it off.
Just cut it off. And he said, "Okay, let's go. We don't have all day."
But I was completely captivated by this man's like lack of hairdo, except for on the very back of his neck. It's just
like
so
the
weird.
Nape. It's so strange.
And it's like not just it's like the back,
possible.
but also the very center. Like, it doesn't reach around. Like, this isn't like a George Costanza hairdo. Like, this is completely shaved the entire way around, and except for the back center of his neck,
and not the crown.
This is literally just like
not the
soft
crown.
It's like where it first gets soft, where like head becomes neck, where skull is gone. That's where it's at.
It's the strangest thing in the world.
Huh. I missed that too. I was not paying
attention.
I noticed
Or
I was paying just the right amount of attention.
I didn't make a note about it, but I did notice it. It was strange.
Okay, so I didn't notice the bad haircut or most of the slurs, so I'd say I did pretty well.
I think that's just about the end of my list. Oh, no, I have to just make a really quick note. There were a lot of guys smoking cigarettes in that oil refinery.
There was so much smoking in this.
So many. Like,
okay, except speaking of in the bar, why is Seagal holding... He's holding the cigarette like this or something, like he's this overhand kind of position.
He's in the trenches of World War I trying to hide the bud.
It was so weird. But yeah, so many people smoking at the oil rig. I thought that was a nice touch. I thought that was funny.
He also made a silencer, or a
yes, I knew you were going to bring that up.
A suppressor. Well, actually, in the world of Steven Seagal, it might as well actually be a silencer because it didn't make any noise. It just, out of a soda bottle. Like an empty soda bottle?
So
that's a thing.
So I did.
Is it?
Okay, so I didn't even. I took a note saying, like, I know Hans is going to bring this up.
If I'm ready to learn.
So I swear to God, in my head, I just like Mandela effect. I swear there was a MythBusters episode about this. After watching this movie, I spent a solid like 15 minutes like trying to find this. I could not find the MythBusters version of it. What I did see online is that there's some basis of reality in this.
Really?
That this, obviously, it does not silence it to the degree that, like, nobody else there would, like, hear it, like it does in a Seagal film, but that you can use a soda bottle. It's more effective if there's some material in there, if they have, like, packing peanuts, or even, I saw one, like, if you tape the soda bottle to the gun, and this also is only on, like, subsonic rounds, like, but if there's, a layer of water beneath the barrel, but inside the bottle, that will help, like, having some material helps deaden it.
Is this like it's only like a one-shot deal? Like until once the other end of the bottle is pierced.
What I see is it's like once the entire end of the bottle is like completely blown out, that you have like 3 to 5 shots or something.
Okay.
Before, and it probably like loses efficacy after the first one, but like it's like completely useless after like.
Okay, I learned something new today. I saw that and I was like,
swear, I'm like, I know they did this on an episode of MythBusters, and I could not find it. But that, weirdly enough, I had the same immediate reaction you did, but I'm like, wait, hold on, let me look into this. And there's like some kind of basis in reality.
Okay, all right. Well, that's interesting.
But I knew Hans, I knew you were going to bring it up. I saw that, and I'm just like, all right, here we go.
That's one of my pet peeves is that in so many movies, suppressors are actually silencers. They make no noise. They work like video games. And in video games, that's fine. But in a movie, it's just, I don't know. For some reason, it just hits me different. I always laugh.
So real quick, the remaining notes I have. Hey, we found something that Seagal is even less convincing at than all his other past roles of firefighter, because to him, firefighting is vaguely holding up like a piece of sheet metal and kind of glaring at the fire.
Like no one else
could.
They had to wait for him to come in on the chopper.
So he can come in and then blow up the fire. That's like all because he's a blowout specialist.
Don't you know that he's the best firefighter in the world? Everyone said so.
Yeah, they did.
Apparently,
that fire was as good as gone. One of the extras said. Oh, Forrest, I do like when fire's as good as out.
And also when he shows up and they just say, "We got the explosives for you." I thought that's
Oh yeah, they did the majority of his job for him. All he did was tell them like move it up 6 inches and then explode it.
So another note, I had a question. I was wondering how Aikido and his special ops backstory is going to factor into this. The movie didn't know the answer to that either. It does, but I like that the movie is just like, hey, we don't know how this factors in either, but it does. The scene where they attempt to kill him, where he goes in, where they're like, we need you for one last job, and really they're setting up to be killed. I think that honestly, my take is that Seagal does his best acting work when he's completely covered head to toe in a protective suit, because he goes in the building and he's like, doing a serious face. He looks over and he sees the body of his friend, and he just like raises his eyebrows. Like his like shocked face when you just see him from the nose up is legitimately like my favorite. It's like my favorite acting moment in any Seagal movie so far.
Got to make a thumbnail for the YouTube video about this movie.
Yeah, on it. Oh, there we go.
There it is.
My note for that dream sequence at Vision Quest is just that dream sequence.
Quest.
Just yeah, that's all I could take a note on. Okay, let's see. What else do I have? I appreciate that he sets up an explosive and that he kind of jogs away from it, and that gets him far enough to survive. But a helicopter that is helicopter distance away just insta-kill, like, explodes.
Well, because he has that secret shed up in the mountains just full of different kinds of explosives.
Right.
Just in case.
But he didn't get further away than the helicopter was.
And
he just kind of...
This is the second movie in a row where he has a secret CIA telephone.
Yeah. Well, of course, he has all the stash. It's like a Chekhov's gun show, but it's like he just has it just in case he needs it. It's perfect. No introduction anywhere. He just has it.
He has it. Well, I mean, this one makes even less of an effort. They just say it's a Skull movie. He's got the phone, right?
And all the explosives, and the grenades, and the guns.
I do like when they're infiltrating the oil rig and he gets to the chain link fence and he has these little cutters and you see him snip like 4 of the links and then just immediately there's a Seagal-sized hole in the fence that he just walks through.
That was one of the moments where I'm like, did they just cut out the rest of what this was?
They're like, oh my god, this adds an extra 40 minutes to the movie.
Like he struggled with one of the links.
Okay, so we thought running was gone. Running is back, not for very long. But at the end, while everything's exploding, we have Seagal running. He's not that much better at it.
I'm glad you brought it up, though, because I made a mental note while I was watching. Like, we can reset the clock on that one. We know that at the very least, we got one more.
It's not his last. He has not run. Well, maybe he's run his last run now.
Yeah.
But we got one more run at least. When we get to the end, that speech at the end. Oh my god!
We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We gotta talk.
Okay.
That's my last note too, because there's a little bit to talk about. Aaron, do you have anything? We've been talking for a while. Do you have any notes?
I want to talk about the climax of this movie, like the infiltration of the oil refinery / oil rig, which is apparently supposed to be like this revolutionary idea, putting the refinery directly next to the oil rig. And so when they're debating about how they're going to approach this, Joan Chen goes to Steven Seagal. I do not remember any of these characters' names. I don't think it really matters. They hardly use them.
Okay, Forrest Taft. I remember Forrest Taft.
Yeah, Forrest Taft.
Because they do say, holy
I did have the easiest time remembering Seagal's character's name in this movie. Hold a gun to my head and ask me to name any of his other characters. I don't know. I would probably die. But I do know Forrest. I know his name is Forrest with 2 R's.
Forrest Taft.
Yeah. But anyway, so she tells him, we have all this evidence. We can go to the press. And then, the government who wants to shut this down will just shut it down. And he says, what is essentially a non sequitur. Well, you think the spirits are just going to come and, help us? Do you think that, the great spirit of the earth is going to flip a switch that just turns all the oil refineries off? No, we need to blow it up. We're going to do violence. What?
Praxis.
She did not suggest burning sage and saying a prayer to the great bear spirit to,
She had a very clearly laid out... The movie would have been better even if he said, okay, you go do that.
Then you could have had an A plot and a B plot. She goes and tries to convince the press of what's going on, and they're trying to get there in time to make sure that he doesn't die. And so there's a better movie yearning to break free.
But no, it says she holds his duffel
Instead, she gets turned into the pack mule, and says, "Oh yeah, forget my plan. Let's go blow up the oil rig that we're trying to prevent from blowing up." Which is the whole point of all of this, is that the oil rig is unsafe because it's a rush job, and it's going to explode and spill oil into the ocean. That's why why the whole local community doesn't like it. It's dangerous and bad for the environment. His solution to prevent the oil rig from spilling oil into the ocean is to blow up the oil rig so that it spills oil into the ocean.
Okay, but he does have one throwaway line where he says, like, I did something with the preventers, so that'll stop the oil from
Yeah, I
leaking.
remember that too. That's what I was going to say. But it is a very, like...
They don't actually go into it. They don't explain it. But again, one of the scriptwriters in the room had the very same thought you had. And instead of like doing the work to make this A and B plot make sense in some way, they just said, "Oh, put in a line where he says like it's okay, it's not gonna leak."
Yeah,
I think the weirdest part about that whole thing for me was that the whole, like, the rig, the part of this facility that was the most important was the rig, wasn't online yet. The whole movie is the whole point is that they have to get it online sooner than whatever X date before the land gets turned back over.
Yeah, they have like 13 days or something.
Yeah. But in the final fight scene, those preventers or whatever are leaking oil. The big bad guy gets tossed down into a big pit of oil. There's lots of oil in this rig that is not online yet and hasn't been drilling because it's not online, but there's oil there?
Yeah, like the
I was
refinery
really
is
confused by
operating,
that.
like they're refining oil there.
Also, I don't understand in those pictures, like in the movie, the rig is like 30 feet offshore from the refinery.
Yeah.
That's not how that works. Those are miles offshore, and then they have to have it sent over, like piped over or boated over to a refinery onshore. The whole thing just, I couldn't.
Yeah. Again, there was no perspective to this movie. There was no like, concrete world built. It was literally just a series of set pieces vaguely connected into scenes.
Yeah.
But I do actually really appreciate it at the end there where he's like intentionally leaking it all to blow it up in a way that's not going to like leak anything. That this whole time you have entire characters. You have at least two characters, Billy Bob Thornton and Arlie Ermey's character, that are just like talking to like, we gotta watch out, he's the best of the best, like, oh no, I hope he doesn't come our way, he's the best of the best. And then it cuts to Seagal kind of just like vaguely, listlessly wandering around and then turning valves. Yeah. Like he kind of turns a valve, then he's just like, just wanders over here, turns a valve, and they're like, he's the best of the best, you better count your days when he's coming after you, son.
This, like,
and he just kind of and turns another
in this
valve.
Massive industrial facility with no redundancies or safety measures.
And he knows exactly where everything is.
Yeah, in this massively complicated industrial machine the size of an Amazon warehouse. And he can just like, he turns like 3 knobs and pulls a single fuse out of a single breaker, and it shuts the whole facility down.
Yeah, well, he's the best of the best.
Well, he does show. He puts a screwdriver in there and shorts it.
Yes.
So real quick, something I did actually just unironically like about this scene towards the end when he's doing all this, when he's listlessly wandering around like turning the valves. I do like how all the villains just try to like, Irish exit out of like they're never gonna when like, Michael Caine leaves, and so he's like, oh, I need to go, everybody stay. And then Sherry Shattuck's character is also just like, I have to go to the bathroom. And like that whole scene where like 3 or 4 different people are just like, yeah, and leave.
I mean, John C. McGinley like states, "This is dangerous, I am leaving," and then leaves. I mean, then everyone else is like, huh.
I'm not actually willing to die for this guy.
Quietly pieces out.
Like surprisingly, okay, as Aaron said, a surprisingly grounded film that they're like, you know what, actually, I'm not a henchman, I'm not a soldier, I'm like an executive. I'm gonna go home.
I'm like the switchboard operator at the refinery. I'm going home. No. They're actually
Sherry Shattuck is like, I just like schedule this guy's meetings. Yeah. I'm later.
Like there are several characters who, like Michael Caine is like screaming at the refinery workers and seveall of them yell back like, "I am not dying for you. This is no.
Yeah,
I'm going
so
home."
I do. That part's pretty chill. Not gonna lie.
Well, do we want to talk about the speech at the end?
No.
We have to at some
the
point.
only actually I had 3 notes. The main things I said about the speech are just, oh my god, are you kidding me? It straight up sounds like Hyde on that 70s show. Like, there's a car that runs on water, man, a fiberglass air cooled engine, and it runs on water,
He
man.
literally says engines that run on water.
But like, when Seagal's talking about like, oh, they have these amazing technologies, that I'm like, did you like citation needed, please? Like, citation, please? Source? I'm not saying oil companies are like screwing over the planet. I don't disagree with that. It's like heartbreaking, the Onion article, heartbreaking. The worst person you know makes a great point, but like very badly. I'm like, you can say they are intentionally suppressing things that would be better for the planet in the name of profits, but he just like lists like 5 different sci-fi technologies.
Well, I mean, so like the electric vehicle was invented in 1832, but also like that doesn't mean that we could have had electric cars by 1835.
Right.
Like that's
like
a different
I don't know, he read about like, oh, in some specific controlled study this thing happened, but he's talking about it, the camera just cuts to like this like F1 car that's just like running on magic.
Yeah, like there was a team
Running on magic.
well, like there was a team of engineers at Carnegie Mellon. This was some like, I'm not gonna look it up because it didn't really go anywhere. But it was at like Carnegie Mellon or some crazy like super prestigious engineering school.
Yeah, whatever. Who wants to go
They
there?
built like a hyper efficient vehicle. It gets like 70 miles to the gallon, but it also has a top speed of like 20 miles an hour and costs $1 million. Right. So like, yeah, we can do these.
And that's
things.
that's what Seagal unironically thinks they're hiding.
Yeah.
So the only other 2 things I had are, oh Lord, the music is trying. The music is trying so hard to sell this, and you can't fault it. It's doing the best it can.
Yeah.
And just that this very much, like, while I'm watching, I'm like, wait a minute, I've like seen this speech before. I've seen the scene in like freshman year of high school when you're assigned a persuasive speech for like your like public speaking class. Yeah. Like, this guy did some Wikipedia didn't exist. This guy did some, like, he did some research the night before, and he's like, my persuasive speech on why the environment is good by Steven Seagal. Companies are bad, and we should stop. Like, it's just...
And it is, like, it's a good message. It's not...
Right,
yeah.
Heartbreak, worst person you know, makes a great point very badly.
It does it wrong. Yes. Now, I will say, this speech is infamous, because the original cut, reportedly, cut of this speech was 11 minutes long.
Oh, good.
Like, he rattled on for 11 minutes.
Give me the... How long is it in film?
It's about 4.
Give me
Warner
the
Brothers
cut.
Give me the director's
Warner
cut.
Brothers.
Oh my god.
Brothers.
Seagal cut.
Made them cut it down to 4 minutes because it was 11 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Don't cramp my
What did
vision.
he cut out?
Let's just rewind to when I literally said you could cut out 10 minutes from this movie by just getting rid of that entire speech. This is the first time I'm allied with the studio trying to cut the director's vision. I can't believe what happened to me. I'm gonna go watch the theatrical cut of Blade Runner after this. I guess. Like, that's just who I am now.
Oh no.
Yeah. This movie also...
That's wild. I would watch it.
Its only nominations, and Steven Seagal's only nominations. Well, he's actually has nominations for other movies too. But for this movie, he was nominated by the Golden Raspberry Awards, very prestigious, for Worst Actor, Worst Picture, and nominated and won Worst Director.
Respect. But no, this is actually one of the things that legitimately made me mad in this movie. 1, wasting character actors. 2, like, if you have any, I'm not even saying you have to be like, sworn member of Greenpeace. If you have like any desire at all to like help save the planet in any way, if you consider yourself an environmentalist at all, like, this is working so hard against like everything you believe in. Like, I think the environmental movement is worse off because this movie exists. I think, like, this movie made me mad because I'm like, oh my god, like, this somehow unjustifies like people who have like legitimate like well documented and well researched views on how to help fix the environment, like this movie is harming the movement overall in some way. That's one reason that this movie actually made me mad. I'm like, I don't even know how, I can't articulate how, but this is hurting the movement.
Well, when I was watching this movie, I thought, oh, it's going to be an environmentalist movie. How much did they spend on just like burning oil in this movie? Like, there are prolonged scenes where there are just massive oil fires just raging. Which I know, like, with pyrotechnics, and you can do it in a way that's like less damaging to the environment and things, but still. And
not to do like the, oh, you care about the environment but own a car type argument, which is, you know, fallacious, but like, it is. It's just like you very poorly tried to make a message by just going to Alaska and blowing up a bunch of stuff. Like,
yeah. For which there are no repercussions, as usual.
None.
Like,
no. So
it's a
I was thinking
good
about
message
this.
and everything, but he still like wrecked millions of dollars of property very much illegally.
Well, yeah, because I was thinking about this at the end. Like, he gives a speech in City Hall, and I was thinking he should be in prison right now. Like, the owners, like Michael Caine, absolutely was doing bad and illegal stuff. But at the time when Steven Seagal entered into that facility, that was the private property of Michael Caine.
And he just straight up murdered a bunch of guards that were there to protect the facility against him. He just killed them.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can think the eco-terrorist is justified, but like, they're still an eco-terrorist.
Yeah.
Like,
they don't get...
Someone's gonna do something.
They don't get honors
them.
at City Hall. Like,
that's not how that ends.
No.
So I have a couple favorite quotes, and then I got one last stinger here that I'm going to bust out at the end of the episode. Is there anything else we need to talk about the movie itself?
No.
You sound disappointed.
I'm not disappointed.
Aaron's second favorite Seagal movie?
Yeah, actually.
Really?
Oh. I think talking about this made me more angry. I don't know.
See, here's the problem. Honest to God, this is also so far my second favorite. And I hate to say that, really? But when I'm thinking about what I would rate this, what my star rating is going to be, all of his previous ones, all 4 leading up to Under Siege, were 1.5 stars. I put Under Siege, I think 3 or 3.5 maybe. And this one, I'm going to put it at 2. It's not a good movie. It's by any means, but it's better than Above the Law, Hard to Kill, whatever all the other ones were. Like, this okay, as much as it sucks, this is my second favorite so far.
Yeah.
Wait, oh no. Wait, you're not.
Aaron's totally right.
I'm worried.
Can you say that again?
Except
Aaron is totally right. 100%.
There it is, memorialized.
Okay, I'm just reluctant to do this because, like, if you ask me, like, which one of these I'd rather, like, rewatch, I would rather rewatch this. Like, I could put up with this more than, like, Hard to Kill or After Justice, you know, any of those. But this movie made me more angry. Like, it actively me off. So I feel like I can't say
why?
It's my
do you hate the
favorite.
environment?
Yes. I think Michael Caine should have been the hero of this movie. I think he was trying to stimulate... He's a job creator. He's trying to stimulate the economy and give America energy independence from OPEC. Like, he's trying to make us independent from foreign oil.
Well, but with that accent, do you think he's a real American citizen? This is a foreign business interest.
Wait a minute. This guy's BP. They call it Aegis, but he's BP.
Yeah.
But I appreciate an innovative capitalist, a real job creator. So yeah, I think he deserved better. That's why the movie made me mad. No other reason. Yeah, I mean,
true titan of industry
somewhere there. Let's just say I said I would have my star rating by the end, so I guess I need my star rating. Let's just say 2 stars for now, but then check my letterbox to see if it stays there.
All right, favorite quote.
Film. My favorite quote, I don't have the exact words, but it's when Billy Bob Thornton, one of the cutaways to Billy Bob Thornton, he's like, he doesn't do like anything in the movie, but he's standing up on this ledge with one of the other goons, and he's arguing with himself over whether or not he should extend the stock on his gun.
Oh, yes.
Because he says when he uses the stock, like, he feels weak. He feels more like a man when he like fires from the hip. And he wants to feel like a man when he kills Seagal.
Yes. I take it back. Billy Bob Thornton. This one.
I forgot
that part
about
is pretty funny.
It was pretty rad.
It's outstanding.
For me, the quotes that I liked, the most disgusting quote by far is when, I think this was Arlie or me. It's either Arlie or me or Billy Bob Thornton. It's one of them when he's like talking to guards and he's like, you gotta, be ready. You gotta be ready to fight. You gotta protect this place. You gotta protect it like your sister's cherry. That made me like wince.
I missed
You gotta
that.
protect it.
I missed that
I
too.
went back to like find it again. It made it. I physically recoiled at that phrase. I also like, this was during the part where he's just running around turning valves. Somebody said Forrest Taft is the patron saint of the impossible. Actually, that was I want to say that was earlier.
That was Michael Caine.
Oh, it was one. It was Michael Caine. He's the patron saint of the impossible. That.
Except once again, we don't actually see him do anything extraordinary.
Probably my favorite non-Seagal quote is, Alaska is a third world country. It's just one we happen to own. Because I think, again, this is like the movie really trying to say something, but like not knowing how to say it.
You were so close to making a point there.
Like, you kind of have a point, but you don't. You'd like to think you have the idea of the point.
Quote were in a different movie, the exact same words, just in a different movie, I'd be like, that was a cool line.
But this one's just kind of funny. My favorite Seagal quote from this one is when he says, "It's like I always say, we gotta blow it, and we gotta blow it now."
I had that one down too. He's never once said that, and he, at the entire movie leading up to this point, he talked about how violence is not the answer, and they're making him choose violence. What? Yeah.
But that spiritual who ain't gonna do anything. We gotta go to be violent.
My
I don't know. Seagal has a southern accent.
My favorite was when Hugh first sees, what's his name in the forest. Mm-hmm. When Hugh first sees Forrest and they're talking about, they have their back and forth, whatever. He was trying to convince him that something's wrong, and Seagal's like, nah, nothing's wrong. And he goes, "You used to be a good man, Forrest. Now you're nothing but a whore." That made me laugh. And then Seagal turns around to him, and I don't explain to me what this means, because I don't know what it means. Seagal turns around to him and yells over to him, "For $350,000, I'd anything once." What does that mean?
I think that's his salary.
But
I think that's what he was saying.
Yes.
Okay, but what's he saying?
No, it doesn't.
It was like.
Well, it's because he calls him a whore, so he's trying to do like a witty one-liner pun.
He's trying to say like, I am, yes, but also like I'm making bank.
He's like, but I'm paid handsomely enough to make it tolerable.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
But I chose like a weirdly
it's not
specific
good.
Number.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not good. I'm with you on that, but at least like I get what
at $350,000 annually pre-tax. Like, it was weirdly specific.
Yeah. No, but I thought that one got me. You're nothing but a whore.
Yeah, that part's pretty good. I do like that one. All right, anything else we need to go over? Anything else we need to talk about this piece of shit movie?
This very irritating. Movie.
It made me mad. I'm so mad.
Irritating to watch, because you're right. It's going back to that article you said on Letterboxd, the like 1-star reviews that are actually liked. This one's getting a higher review from me than the first 4.
Yeah.
But the first 4 were more pleasurable to watch than this one. Like, this one was definitely a better movie than those, but it sucks. I hate it.
I'm the opposite. This is somehow for me like a worse movie than those, but still more watchable.
But you're still rating it higher than you rated the other ones?
Really? I'm so non. I really don't. This just breaks my scale. I don't know where.
Yeah, this is just
let's say 1.5 or 2
this
stars.
Gut feeling. That's what I'm going with. But it just sucks. I really just did not. This one was just bad. And coming from Under Siege, where we were all like, "Man, this was actually surprisingly decent," to this, knowing we're just going further and further downhill from here. What's up? Under Siege 2 is up next, right?
Yes,
that one I'm actually really excited for.
Real quick, because I forgot to make a note about this, because Under Siege 2, we talked about how bad the poster was last time. This is like the first truly despicably awful like poster on a Seagal film. Like, you need to look it up. It is very clearly Seagal's head photoshopped onto another body. Like, just the way he's standing holding this gun is not how like a human body is formed. this is like, we commented on how like
Can't
in
wait.
Under Siege 1, it's very obviously his head photoshopped on like a Navy
To
uniform.
make it look
This
like
when they
Tom
do the
Cruise.
same thing. This when they do the same thing, but it just doesn't work. Whatever the budget was for that first poster slashed for this one. Because like they got lazy with this one. This is almost abstract art.
They
It's
used
like,
that
I think they had to move
Photoshop
his
blur
head.
tool.
I think like the reason his head is like that is so you can see the like burning oil refinery behind. I don't know, but you need to look up this poster. It is
Actually, I don't.
so far. None of the posters have been good.
No.
But this is the first like truly like heinous one. This is when it's all downhill for his posters, and it continues to be bad in the next one.
Honestly, I don't think I looked at
And
the
Under
poster
Siege
for
2.
this one. I was still thinking of Under Siege 2.
And he's wearing his like tribal regalia. He's wearing his like cultural appropriation.
Oh
outfit.
God! Wait, what?
Oh no.
I look in
Yeah.
all of these. They touch up his hairline so much because it's not what his actual hairline is.
And they just smooth the
They
face.
do. They really do. Because his hairline comes to such a pronounced V. And in the posters,
Yeah.
they kind of take it back to make it look more normal.
No, so I will say something that I'm not going to waffle on at all. This is by far the worst poster so far. That might change one movie from now, but it is currently the worst poster we've seen.
His hand doesn't look it's real either.
No, none of him does.
Well,
He's like he's a doll that wishes to be a real action hero. He just
well,
doesn't
we are now at
move
an
like
hour 40
humor.
talking about what the
We're an
posters
hour-
look
okay,
like on this
so-
podcast.
Ah, great radio. Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap up. Thank you for joining us on Deadly Ground, directed by Steven Seagal, starring Steven Seagal, ghostwritten by Steven Seagal, where he plays Forrest Taft. And for a parting note, just remember, kids, only you can prevent fires, Forrest.
You had that in the barrel, didn't you?
That was the stinger. Yeah, that's like my fourth note that I took. I was holding that from like 10 minutes into the movie.
worst.
I definitely think that's the line in which we end this one. I mean, you're the editor, so
Yeah.
That means one of us has to die. Don't mention it, brother.